I got a question from one of my viewers on Twitch. He wrote and asked this. What are your tips for looking at Grandmaster games? I look at the games and have no clue why they play certain moves. Yes, I have some tips, as well as suggestions on which games to study and where to find them. Hi there, I'm Stan. Welcome to another video. If this is your first time here and you're looking for tips on how to improve your game, consider subscribing. Studying Grandmaster games can help you improve across multiple areas. So I'm going to give you 6 things to keep in mind to get the most out of it. Starting with number 1, turn off the engine. Unless you're a very strong and experienced player, looking at a bunch of lines that an engine throws at you is not going to help you improve. It's not enough for you to see which lines are good. You also need to understand why they're good. And unfortunately, today's engines just don't do that. So turn them off. Moving on to tip number 2. Guess every move for the winning side. It won't be easy. This is hard work, but it pays off at the end. The way it works is like this. You can play out the first 10 moves, unless you're studying that specific opening. So play out the first 10 moves, then cover up the rest of the moves. If you're using a book, cover the page. If you're doing it online, I don't know, put a sticker on the screen. Just make sure you don't see the moves and try to guess every single move. Don't rush. Spend about 1 to 3 minutes per move. The more experienced you are, the more time you need to spend per move. Tip number 3, take notes. As you analyze the game, take notes of everything. Lines you've calculated, ideas you had, strategies you were trying to implement. And then compare to what happened in the game. See if you can spot why GMs made their moves. Sometimes you will see it right away. Sometimes it will take you several moves to understand it. And sometimes it's just going to stay a mystery. If you have annotated games, then you will be able to compare your notes or your ideas with the annotators or the players. And if not, it's just a guessing game. At the end of the game, write down everything you've learned. Write down everything you've learned about Grandmaster play, new tactical patterns, new strategies, anything you learn, write that down. Also write down everything that you've learned about your own mistakes or your own play. For example, you might find out that you always prefer aggressive moves and you forget about defense. Or you might find out that you prefer to trade pieces when Grandmasters prefer to keep them. Whatever it is you find out, just write it down. And so at the end of the game, you'll have a list of notes, new ideas that you can implement in your next games, mistakes that you're making that you can try to fix in your next games. Tip number 4, critical positions. If you're using a book or an article and there is a chess diagram, it is very likely that something is going on in that position. Spend a little bit more time, try to figure out what is happening and what you would do. Tip number 5, focus on the strength of the player you're studying. Each player has their own strength and the style that matches those strengths. For example, if you're studying games of Karpov, focus on prophylactics. If you're studying games of Tal, focus on tactics. Doing that is going to help you understand what's going on in the game. Tip number 6, turn back the engine. That's right. Now that you've gone through the entire game, turn back the engine. There are a few things we want the engine's help to check. Go back through your notes and get a general understanding, general validation of the moves that you've made. Just because the moves that you made were different from the moves that happened in the game doesn't make them bad. They're just different. They might be even better. So go through the moves and see what the engine says about the quality of your moves. See if there were any blunders. Check your lines. Did you make any mistakes when you were calculating your lines? Did you miss any opportunities for yourself? Did you miss any opportunities for your opponent? Again, take note and see if there are any areas that you need to focus for your own improvement. Now let's talk about which games to study and where you might find these games. Annotated games are much better, especially if they were annotated by the players themselves. As far as which players to pick, you can go one of 3 ways. You can pick players who are similar to you in style. You can pick players whose style you would want to learn, or you could just pick generally good players. In the first 2 cases, you will be learning things that are immediately applicable in your games. And in the last case, you will just increase your understanding of chess. Also, it is generally considered easier to follow older games. If you pick an old world champion, like Capablanca, they were all extremely good. Their opponents, on the other hand, were not as good, and so the game is easy to follow. Today's Grandmasters are all exceptionally good, and so in order to win, one has to combine multiple ideas, and as a result, the games are a little bit more complex and a little bit harder to follow. So if you're a novice player, you might consider starting with a classical game collection. As far as where to find these games, books are probably the best resource. I have a number of books I can recommend, and I'm going to put them in the description of the video. If you have some questions or want more insights, jump into my stream. It's a great place to get your chess questions answered. It's also a good place to play some chess. Also, we have a great Discord server with a lot of people working on improving their game. If you're looking for a good community of like-minded people who can help you out, feel free to join and hit them up in there. Other tips you're using to study Grandmaster games that I might have missed? I'd love to hear from you, so comment down below. And if this is your first time here, consider subscribing.